I'm happy Reggie can feel welcome on campus, and USC couldn't wait to announce that he'd been cleared. Great timing of this moment for USC to distract from whatever else is going on there. And
positivity.
It should have never happened like this. He should have never had to give back the trophy, I don't think. I don't think he should have ever had to vacate all those victories, or the school should have had to vacate those victories. To me, those things happen on the field, and they happened on the field. But to this day, I really wish USC and Reggie handled things differently. Losing 30 football scholarship over 3 years really hampered USC. That's an understatement. Plus, having Lane Kiffin and Sarkisian as the head coaches didn't help matters. And then you can add your own Clay Helton line there. I mean, who's after that?
We're still trying to recover from those scholarship losses now from 7 years ago.
Doesn't seem that way.
We are still hurting.
Roster's full.
We are. We're up to number 4. Okay, with Miller Moss now. I don't know if you noticed that, but we're up to number 4 in the nation.
I hope he stays.
But we're still hurting.
The good news, Matt, is that USC won big when Reggie was on the team. And I enjoyed working so many of those games in 2003 on the USC radio team, and then doing Fox Television in 04 and 05 with Barry Tompkins. I feel awful for the guys that played on the 04 and 05 teams that I had played with and recruited a lot of those guys, because the NCAA says they didn't actually play in those games. It's BS. Those memories and stories can't be taken away. And I feel bad for guys that played on SC teams from like 2012 to 2016. You know, guys like Matt Barkley, Big Cat Leonard Williams, Robert Woods, Cody Kessler, mentioned last segment, Max Turek. Hey, Turek. Dudes who missed bowl games, and guys who played on depleted rosters and had to deal with all this stuff.
I thought Wolfie made a good point, too. He said he also owes an apology to those 30 kids that dreamed of getting a scholarship to go to USC that never got that scholarship because they were the back 10 that ended up getting clipped from the class and had to go somewhere else.
So for people who are always asking or tweeting or texting about the current state of USC football, the 13-12 record over the last 2 years and the lack of developing the amazing level of talent that they already bring in has got nothing now to do with Reggie Bush or the USC sanctions, despite what Matt's Clay Helton imitation will tell you. It doesn't. Clay Helton has done that himself. And it kind of goes back to something I've been saying for a while. If you don't have the full leadership to be in a top 5 type of situation as a program, I mean, you might have the university president in place or the AD, but not the head coach, or the head coach, but not the AD, but the president's on board. Like, you got to have some real help to be in the top 5.
It's hard to overcome ineptitude in those offices.
Oh, sure is. And stay in the top 5. So USC's got a lot of problems. There's no doubt about it. They started with these sanctions, and it really started with Reggie Bush and more so Pete Carroll and their inability to come to terms with the fact that they were actually being investigated and to do what everybody else does when you're being investigated by the governing body, which is cooperate and get it over with.
Self-imposed sanctions.
They didn't do it.
Which is what they tried to do with O.J. Mayo. Look what we did over here.
Yeah, they didn't do it. They didn't. And look, in those moments, and I've had conversations about this, and I think it's okay to talk about now. I don't care. I remember back in those days, Mike Garrett would tell me to my face, I can't control Pete. What do you want me to do? And then Pete would say, I control everything. Everything goes through me. I've taken the sports information department, USCRipsit.com. You want to know when this news is going to break? Check out USCRipsit.com. I mean, it was blatant. And it was a lack of institutional control.
Right. Leadership, I'm not trying to take shots at Mike Garrett. I don't know how powerful Pete was.
He took over.
That's when you have to say, this is going to burn to the ground if I allow you to continue to get away with this, unless, like we heard from that little soundbite from Mike Garrett at that, and I know that's red meat at a banquet dinner, but you have to be, we've seen it so many times.
They were grossly arrogant. There was an extreme amount of hubris, but that's what happened. Mike Garrett lost.
They're jealous of SC.
Yeah, Mike Garrett lost control. And you know what? Pete Carroll made it so if you were jealous of USC, you could blow him out of the water, because he dragged his feet for 4 years, dodged depositions, made it very difficult for them to investigate, even though they're BS and they were hypocrites and players should be able to make money out and all that. what happened there was the definition of a lack of institutional control. And it's really on Pete. And Pete skates. Reggie's still a pariah in a lot of people's minds. He made $60 million in the NFL. He never really had to.
Pete's considered one of the great coaches of the last 20 years.
Exactly.
And he is.
Yeah. But if you want to answer and blame USC football's problems on somebody, Pete Carroll, Mike Garrett, and Max Nikias, the three people, the president, the AD, and the head coach when all this stuff happened. And look, what's going to happen with Reggie Bush? I'll tell you. Reggie's number 5 jersey will be all over the Coliseum again, and they'll have the big one with the 6 Heisman winners, and they should, and they'll have a big ceremony to reveal that. The number 5 jersey will again be for sale at the school bookstore and the Coliseum souvenir stands and websites. SC will be able to make a bunch of money off of that. I called the university bookstore today. It's closed.
Indeed.
And
Online, though.
And I wouldn't be surprised to see him get involved with USC recruiting. But at the same time, Reggie was at a USC game last year, and he covered it from the sideline as an employee at Fox. He works in college football. He's never – I mean, how are you banned? He was already in the locker room with USC in the Pac-12 championship up in Santa Clarita. So this is a lot of window dressing, and
it's official.
It's
not official on the website yet. I can't get that 5 yet.
It's official with the NCAA, but why did USC ever have to adhere to it in the first place? They could have been like, look, we're bringing him back. It's been 5 years. They could have done something long before this. They haven't. They're doing it now. It'll be a big celebration. Don't forget what happened and what caused all of this would just be my message. But I'm happy for Reggie because I know it's meaningful to him and meaningful for a lot of players that were inspired by him. But there's a lot of other people that have been hurt by this, and I think they feel kind of unheard.